Okay, so today we're going to talk a little bit about the properties of parallelograms. So, if a quadrilateral is a parallelogram, let's first start with what is a parallelogram. So a parallelogram is a quadrilateral with both pairs of opposite sides that are parallel. So these triangles here mean that these two sides are parallel. So QR is parallel to PS and QP is parallel to RS. Now we're going to talk about if a quadrilateral is a parallelogram, what are some of the properties within that parallelogram. So over here it really talks about that. So if a quadrilateral is a parallelogram, then opposite sides are congruent. So that means that QR is congruent to PS and QP is congruent to RS. It also means that opposite angles are congruent. So angle Q is congruent to angle S and angle P is congruent to angle R. Now notice that Q and S both have one mark, and then P and R have two marks. That means that these are these are congruent and these angles are congruent. Okay. Also, consecutive angles are supplementary. Consecutive mean one after another. Now, they're supplementary because they form a straight line and they are equal to 180 degrees. So that means that angle PS equals 180 degrees. Angle P plus angle Q is 180 degrees. Angle Q plus angle R is 180 degrees. And angle R plus angle S is 180 degrees. And then last, the diagonals in a parallelogram, they bisect each other and they're equal to each other. So here we've got PM is congruent to RM and then QM is congruent to MS. So let's go ahead and let's talk about a little bit of these properties. So in example 1 here, it says FGHJ is a parallelogram. So find the unknown length and explain your reasoning. So JH is going to be 5 because remember, if you go back up to the properties, opposite sides are congruent. So the opposite side of FG is JH. So JH has to be 5. And then JK, if you remember, the lines that bisect each other, they're congruent. So G and K is 3. That means K and J have to be 3. Example number 2. It says PQRS is a parallelogram, so find the angle measure. So if you remember from the properties, opposite angles are congruent. So if angle P is 70 degrees, then angle R has to be 70 degrees. And remember that consecutive angles are equal to 180 degrees. So if angle P is 70, then that means that angle Q would have to be 110 because 110 plus 70 is 180. And then we've got this example 3 down here. It says find the unknown length and explain your reasoning. So JH, so if KG is 8, then JH has to be 8 because opposite sides are congruent. And then if LH, or if KL is 6, that means LH is 6 because lines that bisect, it cuts it in half, which means that they are congruent. So let's go down here to example number 3. It says using algebra with parallelograms. So PQRS is a parallelogram, so find the value of x. Now, how do we set this up? Well, 3x and 120. So angle S and angle R are consecutive angles. And remember that consecutive angles are equal to 180 degrees. So I went ahead and I set that up. So 3x plus 120 is 180 degrees. Then you subtract 120 from both sides. You get 3x is 60. You divide by 3, and your x is 20. And let's go down here to example number 2. Okay, it says find the value of x. Now 4x minus 9 and angle Z is 3x plus 18. Now, opposite angles are congruent to each other. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to have 4x minus 9 equal to 3x plus 18. So 3x plus 18 equals 4x minus 9. I added 9 to both sides. I get 3x plus 27 is 4x. I subtract 3x from both sides and you get x is equal to 27. Okay, so go ahead and do example number 4 on your own at home and bring that in as homework.